Hey there! Welcome to our video on the Dark Triad. Now you might be wondering what on earth the Dark Triad is. A new superhero movie or the latest death metal band? Well, it's neither of those things. The Dark Triad is a psychological concept that refers to three specific traits often associated with individuals who exhibit some of the most concerning and damaging behaviors in our society. So we'll be touching on all aspects of the Dark Triad today. And you'll also want to stick around for the bonus section, where I'll talk about something related to the Dark Triad, the Light Triad. That's right, just as there are three dark traits, there are also three light traits that can be just as important in helping us navigate the complexities of human behavior. Welcome to our Wellness Lenses, where we talk about mental health and the journey to self-development. Without further ado, let's dive in. Now, the Dark Triad is composed of three main traits: narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy. People who score high in all three traits are often referred to as Dark Triad individuals, and they tend to exhibit behaviors that are not only harmful to themselves, but also to those around them. But before we move on, you might be wondering why the Dark Triad is important. Why should you even care? Well, understanding these traits can help us recognize and deal with people who may be more likely to engage in harmful or manipulative behavior. So, let's break down these three traits a bit more. Narcissism is characterized by excessive self-love and self-admiration. Narcissists tend to prioritize themselves above others and often have an inflated sense of their own importance. Machiavellianism, on the other hand, is distinguished by a tendency to manipulate others for personal gain. These people are cunning and strategic in their interactions with others, often using deception and manipulation to achieve their goals. Finally, psychopathy is characterized by a lack of empathy and remorse, as well as impulsive and often dangerous behavior. Now, it's important to note that not everyone who possesses one or more of these traits is a terrible person, but when they are excessive, it can be a red flag that you're dealing with someone who is potentially dangerous. So, how do you recognize these traits? Well, one of the key indicators of Dark Triad personality is their ability to charm and manipulate others. However, this charm is often used to exploit people for their own gain. They might make promises that they have no intention of keeping, or use flattery to get what they want. You've probably met someone who seemed to have a magnetic personality. They always knew the right thing to say, could win over any room, and had everyone hanging on their every word. Well, that's a classic example of someone who might be using their charm for more nefarious purposes. Say you're at a party, and you meet someone who immediately makes you feel like you're the most interesting person in the room. They ask you questions, listen intently to your answers, and make you feel like you're really connecting. But as the night wears on, you start to notice that they're asking pointed questions about your job, your income, and your relationships. They're not just being friendly, they're trying to gather information that they can use later. You should be able to recognize these behaviors and not fall for them. But remember that just because someone is charming doesn't mean they're trustworthy or have your best interests at heart. Another red flag to look out for is their lack of empathy. Dark Triad personalities can be incredibly callous and indifferent towards the feelings of others. They might use people as a means to an end without any regard for their emotions or well-being. If you notice that someone consistently lacks empathy, it is important to be cautious and protect yourself from their harmful behavior. Some ways to do that include setting clear boundaries, being assertive, and seeking support from trusted friends and professionals. Recognize your own vulnerabilities and work on building your own self-esteem and confidence so that you are less likely to be manipulated by others. Lastly, a tendency towards impulsivity and risk-taking can also be a red flag for a Dark Triad personality. They might engage in reckless behavior without any regard for the consequences or the safety of others. One example is someone who's always looking for the next big thrill. They just decide to take up extreme sports like skydiving or bungee jumping without considering the risks involved. They might also engage in impulsive behaviors, like going on a shopping spree or getting a tattoo on a whim. Now, on the surface, these behaviors might not seem like a big deal. After all, everyone likes to have a little fun and excitement in their lives. But when you look closer, you'll see that these tendencies towards impulsivity and risk-taking are actually warning signs of a darker personality. For one thing, they reveal a lack of concern for the safety and well-being of others. People with dark triad personalities are often motivated by their own self-interest and don't care who they hurt along the way. They are also prone to making impulsive decisions without thinking through the consequences. This can lead to a lot of trouble and chaos in their personal and professional lives. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this video so far, please hit that like button and subscribe for more content about self-development and improving your life. It really helps our channel, and your kindness will go a long way. I know the question on some of your minds now is whether it's possible to have all three of these traits at once, and the answer is, well, it's a little bit complicated. Now, on the surface, it might seem like it would be impossible to have all three of these traits at once. After all, Machiavellianism and narcissism both involve a focus on the self, while psychopathy involves a lack of emotion and a disregard for others. However, there are certainly examples of individuals who exhibit all three of these traits. So, what would it look like to have all three traits of the Dark Triad? Well, let's take a look at a hypothetical example. Meet David. He's a successful businessman, always dressed in the finest clothes, and exudes confidence. David is a prime example of a narcissist. He's always talking about himself, and he believes he's superior to others. However, David is also manipulative and calculating. He's willing to do whatever it takes to get ahead, even if that means lying or cheating. This is where Machiavellianism traits come into play. Finally, David is also impulsive and has a history of engaging in risky behaviors. He doesn't care about the consequences. This is where psychopathic traits come into play. So we can see that David exhibits all three traits of the Dark Triad. However, it's important to remember that not everyone who exhibits one of these traits also has the others. In fact, research has found that psychopathy and Machiavellianism tend to co-occur more often than narcissism. But while it's possible to have all three traits of the Dark Triad, it's relatively rare, and most people who exhibit one or two of these traits don't necessarily have all three. So let's move on to our promise bonus. The Light Triad consists of three traits: Kantianism, humanism, and faith in humanity. Kantianism refers to a belief in treating others as ends in themselves, rather than as means to an end. With humanism, you believe in the inherent worth and dignity of all human beings. And faith in humanity is the idea that people are generally good and capable of positive change. By focusing on these light traits, we can avoid the negative behaviors associated with the Dark Triad and cultivate positive qualities in ourselves and those around us. I hope you enjoyed learning about the Dark Triad today. If you're fascinated by the topic, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a video from us. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.